All right, folks, this is the 10.3C, isn't it? Yeah, this is 10.3C. Okay, today it's Friday the 24th of April. Okay, and right, so yesterday I showed you how to get dates. Well, the last lesson was mainly about dates and very stop start day yesterday. Now the formatted date is held. It's held in it's basically it's a date and time. Okay. Now there is, as far as I know, there is a date format in MySQL. There's also a time format in MySQL. Okay, but I have one column in order date. It has date and time. Now, if you want to convert it from a MySQL or an SQL date time to a local date, so for instance, what you have to do is rs.getDate. Okay, it's in so I've done a query, select order date from orders, that produces just one column. All right, that just produces one column. So I go rs.getDate. rs.getDate will just return something called an SQL.date type. Okay, now if you want to convert that to local date, and local dates is what we use, you have to use the method toLocalDate. All right, now I can see what I've done down here. All right, so there's an additional step missing here. So local date is equal to SQL date dot to. Okay, that's if you do it over two steps. Okay, rs.getDate will return a SQL.date data type. Okay, if you want to convert that to a local date, you have to use the toLocalDate of the SQL.date class. Okay, so then I just go, but here I decided to do an rs.getDate returns an SQL.date data type. Then I call toLocalDate of that, and it returns a local date. You can also get a time out of this guy. Now, just to show you again, this is from the order columns. So my SQL workbench here, and I have, it's the order table. Okay, that. So if I select see something about this, use my database. And then we're going to select order date from orders. Oops. They're there. Okay, so they contain both dates and times. If I want to get the time from that, you can see here, I go Java SQL date, SQL times rs.getDate time of column 1. Then I go SQL.toLocalTime. You could also do that all in one line by going, as I've also done up here, time is equal to rs.get time 1 dot toLocalTime. Okay, this is doing it over one line. Over one line of code instead of two. Okay, now if you want to use the date and time, you need to use the SQL datetime stamp. Okay, so SQL.datetime stamp object, SQL datetime stamp is the name of the object, rs.getDatetime stamp 1, then SQL timestamp to local time, that is going to change to local time. You can also do it over a one line. Datetime is equal to rs.getTime get timestamp in column 1. That's an SQL dot timestamp object. To local time is going to convert to a local time object. Okay. Now, EX5, just going to show you some methods we use for scrolling through a result set. Okay. Now, you need to know the customers table. So before you do these, you have to make sure you know the customers table. There is the customers table. All right. That's what a customers table looks like. All right. So we're going to be using mainly the customer IDs. That's what I've done here, I think. Yeah. All right. So customer IDs can be using mainly these guys. All right. I'll just put this slide over here to me on the screen. Okay, sorry, I don't know why that went too early there. Just stopped for a couple of seconds. So I am still recording. Yeah, it's recording. All right, so these are just going to show you how you can go through ResultSet, which is all of our results from a particular query. Okay, so it's going to be scrolling ResultSet. Right. So I'm going to do a connection. Resources. So it's going to be connection con is equal to connect my database. Able to connect to database in EX5 because so this is creating our connection, our statement from the connection. Then we get a result set. RS is equal to stmt.execute query. Now, what are we doing? We're going to go select ID from customers. Now, so what does that produce? So it's on this table. So we only want to go use my database. I'm going to go select cost ID from customers, isn't it? There they all are. Okay. So it goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 12, 9, 10. I don't know why it's 12 and maybe who knows. Okay. Who knows? Right. Now, so we are going to get these results. Now, so first one we're going to use. So we're going to use various commands to go through a result set. So the first one we're going to do is last. Now, remember that every result set starts by default before the first record. So if I went rs.next, that will return true. It'll bring us on to the first record being that number. 1 many zeros, 1. Okay. So now after last does exactly as it says in the 10. So if I go rs.after last. Okay, so what does this do? This places position in the result set after the last result. Okay, so if we want to go to the last result, I go stop previous. Okay, so stop previous. This is previous. Okay, so previous, rs.previous. This will bring us to, this will return true. This will return true as long as there is a record for the current position. It also moves the position of the result set to the previous position, which will be, in this case, the last entry in the table, which is the number, this guy, copy. Okay, which is the number, blah, blah, blah. Okay. rs.previous. Now, this will return true. Okay. So just like rs.next returns a Boolean, rs.previous returns a Boolean. If there is a previous result, it's going to return true and it's going to remove it to it. Okay. So if I go rs record, okay, so ID on last row is rs.get int 1. Now there's only one column in this query. See it there? There's only one column in it. So we're getting it from the first column. ID and last row is rs.get int, which should be, oops, ex5. So examples.ex5. There it is. Okay, so it's getting the last result. Okay. Now, there is a load of, so I'm going to do a couple other ones. rs.first. That does exactly as it says in the 10. Moves result set to first position. Result set. So then I go ID on first row is rs.get 1. So it should be this number. So it should be this number, as I hopefully. Yeah. Okay. Now, just like there's a, so we've seen next, we've seen previous. So previous goes backwards. Okay. Now, first will get us the first on the list. Okay. Now we're still in first. So if I go rs.previous here, all right, and then I go rs.get int 1, we'll get, because this guy here, this brings us to a position of before the result set. Okay. So, and returns false. So this generates a java.sql.sql exception. Okay, so I'm going to comment out these two guys. Now, if I want to go to the last element in the, if you want to go to the last element in the result set, you can use or is it previous? So this is rs.previous, rs.first. Then we have rs.last. Is last or last? Last. Okay, rs.last. So what does moves result set to last position in result set, which again is that guy. So if I print off the result, ID on last row using rs.last is, I go rs.get int 1. Okay, right, so that's last. We've seen so first will bring you to the first record. Last will bring you to the last record. Previous will bring you to the previous record if it's there, okay? And all of these return Booleans. So next will return Boolean while there is an extra. Previous will return true as long as the previous one, okay? If there isn't a previous one, it's going to return false. So if it's at the first record, you go rs.previous, that is going to return false, okay? That is going to return false. Now, if I want to get a result set back, so if we want to get position to before the start of the result set, we use before first. Okay, so I go rs.before. Okay, it's not, it doesn't return anything. So rs.before first. Now, it doesn't return anything, so you can't put in the print statement. Returns void. rs.before first. Now, if I went rs. Get int 1, this will return an SQL exception. Does. Okay. As we are currently before the start of the result set. Okay, so we take that guy out. So what we need to do after that, we need to go rs.next, and then we go rs.getInt 1. Okay. Now we can get a result, which is the first record, that guy. Okay. Now, the next command. So there we have next, previous, first, last, before first, and is also called after last. Okay, so we have after last, we have before first, we have previous, we have last, and we have first. They're all kind of, it's obvious what they're doing. Okay, now, so before first and after last both return void. Okay, return void. This one returns void. Now previous returns Boolean. Last returns a Boolean. So anything that's going for an actual position. So if you have last, first, previous, next, they all return Booleans. Before first, after last, return void. Okay. Now, next method we're going to do, two more methods to do, is absolute. Okay. Now, what absolute does is, put it in here, absolute moves the result set to a particular row. Okay. Now, absolute 0, important to note, is before first row. Okay. Absolute 1 is first row. Okay. Now, so I am going to, absolute starts at 0, which is the column heading 1, which is the first record. Okay, it's the first row. So I am going to go here. This is rs.absolute 0. Now if I go here, rs.absolute row. So that does return a Boolean. Okay, false. There is no record there. Okay, if there is no record, absolute returns a Boolean. True if a record exists there. False if not. All right. So this is will return false. This is before the result set. Okay. Now, so we are going to go rs.next, which brings us on to this guy. Okay. That's the record it brings it onto. All right. So if I go rs.getInt1, print that out, we should be getting that number. Yeah, that's what we want. Okay, now if I have a look at our database here, I want to go to record 3. Okay, 1, 2, 3. So if I go to 3, so I go to record 3, and we go rs.absolute. Oops, what the fuck is that? BS3. Okay. Now all that's going to do, it'll return true. Okay. As record exists in that line. Oh. And then I go rs.get int 1, which is going to be that guy, which is what is correct. It's the third row. All right. Third row contains int. Okay. Now here's where. So let's just say now there is, how many records is there here? All right. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Okay. So there's 11 records there. So if I go rs.absolute and I'm going to go to row 13. Now, 13's false. The thing about absolute is it doesn't tell you whether the record exists there or not. I could put in the record. There's no record there. Okay? You can put in any number. And it will not cause an exception. It will just return false if there is no row 456. Okay, there isn't. We only have 11, or is it 11? Yeah, 11 records. This returns false. Now, here's what it gets. Now, why it does this, I'm not 100% too sure. All right, you can use minus numbers. Now, why you want to do this, I think you'd be fucking mad to use minus numbers, but you can. All right, if life isn't complicated enough, you can actually use minus numbers. All right, you can use minus number and absolutes. Now, the only ones I'm going to show you. So rs.absolute -1 will always be the last record. Okay, so if we go rs.absolute -1. Okay. rs.absolute -1, and then I go, oops, rs.getInt 1, which should be the first row, which is this record here. Print that out. Always the last record, sorry, always the last record, which is that one. Okay. Now, if there's 11 records in it, all right, why it's this way, I don't know. I don't know. I'm sure there's a good mathematical reason, but so as we have 11 records, if we use rs.absolute -11, we will get the first number, our first row. Okay. Similarly, if it was 50 records, if you use -50, it would get the first one. All right. So just to show you. So rs absolute amount of records will always be the first record in the result set. Okay, so if I go rs.absolute -11, this is the first record. rs.getInt, which is 1001. Okay. Yeah, I presume there's some reason for that. One of those things you kind of know how you're doing it, but you don't want to think about it too much because you know what, it doesn't fucking matter, right? Now, obviously, if you're going to do more things with databases, obviously you're going to have to go into things a little more in depth, all right? But, oh yeah, as well as I said, I would do some of the examples from EX3 as a stream, but I'll do that in a separate little broadcast, all right? Now, so you can also move relative to the current position, all right? So this one here, relative. What does relative do? Moves you to a certain, moves you a certain amount of rows relative to the current position. So I'm going to go to the second row. Okay, so I'm going to go rs.absolute 2. Okay, now this is row 2. ID is that guy. Okay, so if I go 2 positions relative to that, that means I go 2 positions forward. So I'll show you my database here. So we're starting off with this one. Then we go 2 positions relative to that. 1, 2. It should give us 1004. Okay, so I go R. Next line. RS dot absolute or relative to is 2 positions forward relative to position 2, which will be position 4. Right? So I am going to go rs dot relative to, then I go rs dot get so that should be, yeah, okay, so it's moved us 2 positions forward. Okay, okay, so moves us to position 4. Turns true as a row exists here. Okay, now if I want to, so I'm at position 4, I want to move back to position 1, move back 3. Okay, so I'm at position 4. POS 1, which contains 001. Okay, so here minus numbers makes more sense. Okay, so if I go rs dot relative minus 3, okay, what the business contains, so we'll move back 3 positions relative to position 4 in the result set. Okay, rs dot relative minus 3. So if I go rs dot getInt 1, give us the first record. The first record being, oops, should bring us back to this one. So we're at 4, 4, 3, 2, 1. So we should be getting, there we are. Okay, just this row. Yeah, that's that section finished. Now we'll come back and it's an EX3. I'm going to do streams. I never think streams are easier than those, but that's neither here nor there. All right. So that's 10.3 done. I'm going to go straight on to do 10.4 because it's a lot easier. So I'll just stop this guy.